Founders Space, Mentors and Masters. I'm Captain Hoff, CEO of Founders Space, the leading global startup accelerator. I'm also author of the award-winning books, Make Elephants Fly, Surviving a Startup, and The 5 Forces. Welcome to another episode of Mentors and Masters. I am here today with Uwe Dockhorn, the CEO and founder of Liberating Lifestyles. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell the audience about what you do, where you come from, and a little about your background.
Absolutely. Thank you for me being here today, Steve. It's an honor to being here. So I'm Uwe Dockhorn, and I'm known as the Lifestyle Liberator worldwide. I'm originally from Germany, but I work worldwide, internationally, mostly North America. I'm the founder of the AIM system, a three-step transformational experience for in-demand professionals and their spouses or life partners. And I believe in cultivating internal certainty and clarity that improve outcomes, financially in business and emotionally in relationships. And in fact, my superpower is to decipher patterns in couple or family relationships and translate them into a straightforward, actionable framework that makes the patterns visible, understandable, and adjustable. And so this allows me to work efficiently and effectively with my clients, helping them achieve lasting results in 8 hours or less. And, in developing and delivering more than over 15,000 live sessions on the AIM system worldwide in the last 14 years, I think I've gained extensive experience helping these high achievers and their, as I call them, very important partners, the VIPs, in almost every industry, role, and lifestyle.
Well, our audience is mostly entrepreneurs and investors, and entrepreneurs specifically have a lot of issues with lifestyle. Their lifestyle is extremely hectic. They're under lots of pressure, and their relationships with their spouses and their family can suffer. So can you take us through some practical advice that you would give entrepreneurs in this situation?
Well, that's a good question. And, being an entrepreneur myself, of course, as you are, as we all are, I think one of the biggest issues is fear. And, it's not often recognized in, in your daily life and work, but essentially it is because, just because, as you mentioned, I'm, not only working with entrepreneurs, I'm working with their VIPs, the very important partners. And so it's about their family as well. And so, it's the fear about their kids. And, you can't separate family and work. It just carries over. And so the fear for your kids or for your family essentially carries on as you as the entrepreneur. And so I always ask my clients at one point, so just to make it more tangible for them to understand, what is it about fear that happens all the time? So I tell them, can you imagine a scale? And I let them draw a line. And on the left side of the scale is fear. And then I ask, what is on the other side of that scale? And what do you think, Steve, is on the other side of that scale?
Contentment, satisfaction.
Wow, inspiring. Well, in this case, it is trust.
Okay.
So then I ask them to imagine where they are right now in this very moment on that scale. So where are you on that scale between fear and trust right now?
With my family members, trust, 99%.
Yes, fantastic. Yeah. So wonderful. So you're just absolutely sure and certain about that. Good.
I am. So about the relationship we have, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. But I know a lot of couples who don't have that. I know trust is the basis for any good relationship and being totally open and honest. And honestly, I have to work hard at it. And I think all of us do. So tell us, with a relationship that may be not functioning properly, can you give us some examples of how you help people, things you've done that really changed those relationships?
Absolutely. So, for example, take Stefan. Stefan was, came to me after his second burnout. And he was kind of like, just doubting everything. He had this mindset of like, I have to be the best and, the fastest, quickest on the career ladder, just going up, up, up. And, but he was kind of like, even achieving best sales results as a manager, but there was no appreciation. And so he was really struggling, and he already experienced 2 burnouts. So what I helped with my anti-burnout system was to really get him on the other side, to start really, his day looked completely different in that regard. So he was kind of like, before he was there, struggling, hustling, getting up very early, but later he just works most of the time at home. So we really shifted this whole lifestyle of his, liberated his lifestyle, so to speak, to that amount that he was more at home. He could work more from home, not because of COVID. This was before COVID and the pandemic. So it really shifted everything. And he was there for his kids. And we also doubled his income in that regard. So he worked less, earned more money, and he found out what is really important to him. And that is him and his family. So he realized that. And when we worked together, this was the moment when also his very important partner, Nicole, said, well, look, I love what you are doing with my husband. Can we work too? I said, yes, of course. And then I started to realize that there's an imbalance very often, too often, in these high achiever families. There's, from the perspective of the VIP, they're too often down here, and I put my hand down here, and in comparison, up here, it feels like the breadwinner, the provider of the family, so too often there. And the VIP feels more and more abandoned and asking themselves, what about me? What's the next step in my career? So that imbalance is not healthy in a relationship. So what I do, and this is also what differentiates me, I'm not a family counselor, so I didn't counsel them together. No, I'm a systemic coach. So I started coaching them separately, individually, so they can both first regain their independence within their relationship. And this is super important because, it's when the VIP, they have these resentments, and they're often too codependent on their partner. So they really have to experience this. And for the provider, so to speak, it's a whole new experience to really see where they can be in their relationship and start on a different level. And so when I bring this together, they first regain their independence, and then we have these evaluation sessions, and I already shared this one time with you. They're more called like falling back in love sessions. There's is a lots of goosebumps moments. This is where all these goosebumps moments started, and where they really can find and identify, discover the deeper connections they already have. And then they are able to really upgrade to an interdependent relationship where they cherish each other, where they're eye to eye with each other, but respectfully. And this is really why it is so important to regain your independence within a relationship, because on the horizon, there's too often, the big D, the divorce. And so in my experience is that a divorce is nothing else than living, your life outside of a marriage in independence. So what I do is I help my clients to live independent within their marriage.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by live independent within a relationship?
It's really it's the next level in personal development from my perspective. So we know all this, the one partner is typically in a relationship more dependent on the other. So it means that you can, financially, for example. So because the VIPs, they want to create their own income and they want to contribute to the family as well. And this gives them the feeling of imbalance. So they're dependent on the money part. But, they provide emotionally for their family, but they're not providing, financially. So, and this shift in the partnership, in the relationship, in the family life is huge. So that independent life means like have, at the same time, you have a closer relationship to each other because you understand each other better, because you respect yourself, the other person, the other partner on a whole different level. So, and it has implications on the kids as well, automatically, because we tap into most of us have old dependencies, as I call them, elephant thinking. For example, it's old beliefs, false beliefs that we all have. And so really getting rid of those old false beliefs is really the first step to step into an more independent life, because then you can really feel and breathe and perceive who you are as a person and what it means to feel, freedom, control, and certainty. And certainty is key here. It's really about you have a very deep understanding about yourself and your partner. And when both partners are living their own independence to that degree that they respectfully cherish each other, but they also support each other in their independence, but also doing it in the interdependent way. So that's the ideal next level to a close relationship.
So in Stefan's relationship, what was his elephant thinking and what were his fears, and how did you help him overcome these?
Yeah, that's a good question. So his fears were he didn't trust himself enough. And, he was just doing things for others, and he made himself dependent in the same way. So what we did was essentially is, I call this we identified his own success on switch. And there's a story behind that. There's when I was standing at the edge of a bridge and I realized something, that letting go is only 50% of the equation, and the other 50% of the equation is to let in and feel and perceive what else is there. And this is kind of like a letting go, letting in mechanism that we all have. And I call this kind of like a success on switch, or trust on switch, whatever you want to do. It's just click and you can switch it on because you focus on something that is already there. And so this is what we activated in Stefan and in all my clients, essentially to help them to get into the trust level much easier, much quicker than you might think. And when you really train yourself to become a master in this, you have, at one point it's a goosebumps on switch. And this is why I'm talking so much about goosebumps, because I can instantly open myself up and feel instantly the rush and the emotions of the goosebumps. And it's not only satisfying, it's motivating, it's energizing. So me, I'm all for energizing results. And this is what helps you to stay motivated, not only in your family life, but also in your business, whatever challenges there might be. So if you have something like that on switch and you just know how to do that in that very moment, you're far ahead.
Oh, that's fantastic. What other things are part of the AIM process that our entrepreneurs could take away and put into their lives today and benefit from?
Well, there's the AIM system, first of all, is an acronym. So the AIM system, A stands for activation, I stands for implementation, and M stands for manifestation. So what the AIM system really is doing is in the first phase, you activate this on switch that we all have. So this is super important. If you're not doing that, personal growth, personal development, you will just fall back into old habits, old patterns all the time.
So you say activate the on switch. What is the on switch?
The on switch is that letting go, letting in on switch that I mentioned earlier. So that's the equivalent. Sorry. So I'm just saying it's kind of like an on switch, but it really goes back to that letting go, letting in part. And so this is super important because we all have something inside of us, but it's kind of like sitting under our noses and we don't have access to it because we can't see it. So it's really important to feel and perceive it. And I walk my clients through that process to really identify. I mentioned elephant thinking before. It's kind of like, a false belief, something like I can't, or I don't belong, I don't trust. Whatever it is, we all have those, and we're all, kind of made ourselves dependent on those. But it's something that happened in the past without knowing better, of course. And we just reacted to an extraordinary incident and we programmed it ourselves. Yes, we did it ourselves. So, and we carry this on, and over the years, these beliefs become patterns, and these patterns start to steer our behavior, which affects negatively our daily outcomes in our business and our family life. So that's why it is so important to have the activation of that letting go, letting in switch in us first. And then we start to implement. And implementation means implement in all 7 areas of your life, really thorough. I'm German, and so really go deep on that.
And what are the 7 areas, quickly?
Of course. So on the meta level, it starts with the spiritual, with a focus on beliefs, intellectual, and a focus on knowledge. Then it goes to psychological, and the focus is on emotions, social, and the focus is on relationships, professional, and the focus is on money, and recreational, the focus is on fun, and physical, and the focus is on health. So these are the 7 areas. So we start really implementing our, letting go, letting in capability in the daily life in all 7 areas. So we start to create new beliefs because we have let go of what I call the core elephant thinking, that started all that mess in the past. And so you really feel kind of like that relief after that. It's a very intensive session. Feel the relief of like, oh, okay, I'm open now for something new. And that's why we implement at that moment. And then after implementation, there's manifestation. So why implementation and manifestation? Well, when you get into, when you're doing this over time, you implement, typically what happens, because, you will experience setbacks. And this is just normal. This is what happens. So I realized that it's important to be guided through those setbacks. So therefore, I put this phase at the end because it's on purpose. It's really on purpose to experience these setbacks and then learn from it, and then really realize, and then you are ready to realize, oh, for the big stuff in your life, even identifying, your true why, and why how it all comes together for yourself, your family, and all that good stuff. And then you're ready to manifest it into your life. Before, it's kind of like, you train yourself, you implement, you do your best, and it just catches up because some beliefs and patterns are really sticky. They're family patterns, very sticky patterns. So we have to be really cautious about those, and that addresses the issue. So you absolutely can live that, happy family life, and even divorce-proof your marriage.
Uwe, thank you so much for sharing these ideas and your insights. Can you tell our audience how they can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. Well, please come to my website. It's uwedockhorn.com. It's uwedockhorn.com.
I hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked it, hit the subscribe button and share it with your friends. You can help us create more great content by subscribing and sharing. Also, if you want to access our online startup program, our investor network, and our entrepreneur resources, just come to founderspace.com.